Mark Heeney, Executive Director of Housing Strategy at Mind Australia / the Haven Foundation. Mark, welcome to Coach and the Doctor.
Hey, Coach and Doctor. Good to be here.
Mark, full disclosure, we have had some dealings with the Haven.
We have.
Here at J-Man and through Care as well. We know quite a few people that are at the Haven. We support some people that are at the Haven, and also we have an employee here who works for.
We do, and if we go back to another property that we do, the J-Pod, the coach spoke to Dr. Alan Fowles.
Alan Fowles, the very first guest on the J-Pod, right. And he explained a lot of things about the Haven, an amazing organisation as is Mind Australia. So the first question is, are you happy with the progress of the Haven?
Absolutely. I think since Alan would have spoken to you, we're really thrilled by the community support as well as the government support on the Haven Foundation model. It's a very unique model where we really integrate the support aspect as well as the social housing aspect. So as of today, within Victoria, we have 96 homes across 6 locations where we deliver integrated social housing and support. And we're in the process of building our first Haven in South Australia. And we're also bringing on 5 new Havens across Victoria next year, a further 3 the following year. And as part of the Victorian government's big housing build, the mental health round, which has been opened this year, we're expecting to hear some results in relation to some hopefully more Havens that we'll be able to bring to the community of Victoria. So really pleased with the support that we are being able to continue to get, and it's just creating some amazing outcomes for people living with significant mental illness who often in the past have not had access to such important and high quality social housing with that really important wraparound 24/7 psychosocial support, which is really helping people to stay out of hospital, help them maintain their tenancy and help them to maintain positive mental health and well-being, which is what we're all about. So it's great.
What's the main difference between the Haven and other accommodations for people with mental illness?
So the Haven Foundation is very focused on just providing support to people with significant mental health and wellbeing concerns. We recognise that cohort of people often linger on public housing wait lists. We see that there can be discrimination against that cohort of people because of the stigma associated with mental illness. So that is part of our model and our eligibility criteria that we really try to work very closely with health services and support coordinators to ensure that we can support people who really require that support to be able to maintain their tenancy and maintain that wellness. So that on-site 24/7 support, Doctor, is probably a really key, unique aspect to the model that we have between Haven and Mind.
Well, one of the things I noticed, if you go back and have a listen to the chat I had with Alan Fowles, he said it's very easy to put people in homes, right, and give them accommodation. But if they're stuck there by themselves, he said a lot of the time they can end up back where they started, and that could be under a bridge or on the streets. He said, and that's one of the reasons why he was one of the co-creators of the Haven, and of course it all came about because of his daughter. We noticed with the Haven that we've dealt with here in South Yarra in Melbourne, there's only been one person left, that particular Haven, in the last 12 years.
You're talking about residents?
Residents, yeah. Only one person has left in 12 years. There's been one new resident who happens to be a participant with J-Man in the last 12 years. So you must be doing something right.
Yeah, that community at South Yarra is really unique. Like, there's been such amazing friendships that have been created within that Haven. Although some of our other Havens, some people don't stay for a long period of time. And what we really want to support is helping people to achieve their goals around becoming more independent. And if after a while they don't require that 24/7 support, and if people want to move on, then we absolutely support people to move into more mainstream housing. But I think that overall, like, we have such high demand and such great stability amongst our sites, just because often it's something that people have been waiting for or needing to get access to for a long period of time, but it just hasn't been readily available.
And what are your wait lists at the moment?
They're pretty extensive. I guess at the moment in Victoria, we're opening sites in Druin, Ballarat, Bendigo, Pakenham and Seymour. That's all occurring between May and August. When I talk about that, I sort of get very worried because it's a lot in a very short period of time. So we're working very closely with area mental health services and support coordinators in starting to build up that interest and to start having those wait lists. But Doctor, for our other 6 havens that are in existence, we have wait lists across all of them at the moment.
As the coach said, we know the haven in South Yarra quite well. I can't say I know any other havens. Can you tell me a little bit about those? Are they similar? Because the one in South Yarra, I mean, forget about the position for a minute. It's just smack bang
just
next,
on Chapel Street.
Just next to the jam factory. And it was purpose built, is that right?
It was an old convent, that one. So it was retrofitted quite a period of time ago. So you're aware there's that church across the road.
Yep.
And we're able to get that site. Alan did an amazing job being able to secure that site, and we sort of retrofitted the inside to create those 14 individual self-contained units. Our other sites are all purpose-built. So we have these design guidelines that are informed by people with the lived experience. Some people at Haven South Yarra have been part of that process to ensure that the architectural designs can really take into consideration somebody's lived experience of mental illness and lived experience of unstable housing to inform that. So our other 5 sites outside of South Yarra, being Frankston, Geelong, Laverton, Mooroopna and Epping, they're all fairly similar. Mooroopna, which is out in near Shepparton in Yorta Yorta country, is quite different. We work very closely with Rumbalara, which is an Aboriginal community controlled organisation of that site. 20% of our residents there are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people. And that site, I guess, it's a much bigger block of land. So they're all individual self-contained units there. So it's a fairly big variation of the model. But overall, that whole premise of you have your own self-contained unit, your own outdoor area, which is, I guess, a positive improvement from South Yarra as well, is a really key factor that we've added to the model as well. Because everyone brings a dog. We've got a lot of dogs.
And cats.
And cats, that's right. A couple of bunny rabbits.
It does make
maybe a few snakes somewhere as well.
There you go. That doesn't surprise me. Mind Australia, of course, covers so many other areas, the Haven being part of it. What other things do you do within the organisation?
So Minds work across Victoria, Queensland, South Australia and WA. We support just over 11,000 individuals per year. We work not just in the NDIS space, but we do a lot of subacute mental health support. So we do a lot of psychosocial support where we help people within the community, working in partnership with health services to ensure people can stay out of hospital. We also work in the homelessness space as well, ensuring that people who are experiencing homelessness can get access to housing. Part of the Homelessness to Home program within Victoria, we're part of 3 consortium in that space. Mind also work in the allied health space as well, and that's including some partnerships with some private health insurers. And I guess particularly since COVID, we've been doing a lot more digital engagement as well. Mind also does a lot of research and advocacy. So we have some researchers within our organisation, and their role is really to help us to make sure that we're evaluating what we're doing and ensuring that what we are doing is actually delivering positive outcomes for people as well. The Haven Foundation is a wholly owned subsidiary of Mind Australia.
Right.
So in 2018, it became a subsidiary of Mind Australia.
So the foundation came to mind and said, we need your backing. And
exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And part of it is that when people come to mind and Haven, and part of that model is that 24/7 support is a really big part of that model. And so people will buy access to that 24/7 support from Mind. And as you guys well know, that part of those other types of NDIS supports, like support coordination, we strongly encourage people to purchase those other services from other providers and partner organisations as well. So Mind are that sole 24/7 provider of that 24/7 support. And it's really cost effective as well, because that people are really just paying 1/15 of that continuation of 24/7 support on site.
Yeah.
So from an NDIS perspective, the agency are good allies to the model, because they recognise that people are getting the most out of their NDIS plan, where they're still getting that continuation of support, which they really value, as well as having other flexible core dollars that they can spend on community participation and other capacity building activities as well.
Mind also provides support coordination, is that right?
We do.
Yeah.
Yep, we do. Yep.
And so Mind obviously go back pre-NDIS.
42 years.
Yeah. Obviously before the Haven Foundation and Mind came together, Mind was already doing accommodation. Would that be right?
That's right. Yeah. So we started out, it's actually 45 years this year, providing accommodation and support in Albert Park. So that was sort of our bread and butter of what Mind Australia was born from. We were called Richmond Fellowship before then. But yeah, we've been, I guess, long-term providers of accommodation and support.
And how was the NDIS changed Mind?
Pretty significantly. It took us a long time to help the NDIS realise the different approach that they need to take in supporting people with a psychosocial disability. As you would be both aware, psychosocial was almost an afterthought around the architecture of the NDIS. So that took us a long time of a lot of advocacy to help the agency understand how to assess people's needs based on what's reasonable and necessary, and the functional impact that their psychosocial disability brings to them on a day-to-day basis. So that it did take a couple of years to really get to a good rhythm to helping them actually work in that space.
Well, Mark, I'd like to continue with this chat about the NDIS, because there's so much to unpack with the NDIS, but we'll take a quick break, and also we'll chat about that. And I'd like to ask about your involvement, whether you have some lived experience in this, and how exactly did you get involved in this field. But that's after this break. You're listening to Coach and the Doctor. Thanks to J-Man Active. If the body is active, the mind will follow. Back with Mark Heeney after this break.
When you become a sponsor of 89.9 The Light, your business is immediately part of something bigger. Our sponsors help us make a positive difference within the community in many different ways. Every dollar you invest on growing your business goes on to be a dollar invested in Melbourne. Visit the sponsorship page at thelight.com.au and get in touch. Find out more about being part of something bigger and giving back. 89.9 The Light. Positive radio, positive impact.
Ever thought of changing your lifestyle or maybe even your career? But you're a bit nervous about taking the plunge into the unknown. Well, now is the time to get your feet wet. J-Man is an NDIS registered support provider that is now hiring. As the world is adapting to change, it's your time now to not only make a difference, but to also earn the sort of living you deserve. Call 1-800-JAEMAN or visit our website, jman.com.au.
Gildacare is a team of trusted, caring and professional support coordinators. Founded on the principle that it takes a village, we want to lock arms and build a long-standing relationship, one in which we are able to deliver quality support coordination. We offer additional services such as specialist support coordination and psychosocial recovery coaching. GILDA, Gildacare Support Coordination. We make the NDIS process stress-free. Google Gildacare.
You're listening to Coach and the Doctor, thanks to Gildacare Support Coordinators, where it takes a village. With us is Mark Heeney, Executive Director of Housing Strategy at Mind Australia, and also the Haven Foundation. Before the break, Mark, we were talking a bit about the NDIS. Doctor, we know that there's a review on, and that has been brought forward by...
Yeah, Bill Shorten announced a review that was going to be brought forward because obviously he's... Look, I think the overwhelming thing about Bill Shorten since he's been the Minister for the NDIS is we've started to see some movement and improvements. And this review's been on the cards for a while. They've brought it forward by, I think, 6 to 12 months. It's been conducted by Bruce Hayden, I think his name is. My question to Mark is that you touched on it earlier about psychosocial being an afterthought in terms of what services the NDIS provide. It was very much focused around sport coordination, and then probably, 18 months ago, 2 years, there was this push towards psychosocial recovery coaching, which Mind obviously played a big part in. Some of the concerns around the review is what's going to happen to that. Do you have any comments on that, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely, Doctor. I think that the review is absolutely necessary. It's widely understood that there is an amount of rorting happening within the NDIS, and there's some significant financial sustainability issues that the agency is experiencing. One of the areas, I guess, that as from Mind Australia perspective, we really want to ensure that people with a psychosocial disability and their involvement and eligibility within the scheme is preserved. There's around over 50,000 people with a psychosocial disability across the country that are recipients of the NDIS. As becoming a participant of the NDIS, it's created some really amazing life-changing opportunities, including what we've seen at the Haven Foundation, but much more broadly, people have much more opportunity to live the life that they want to because of the NDIS. There has been some media reports and murmurings of psychosocial being taken out of the NDIS. I personally think that would have catastrophic consequences for people with a psychosocial disability. As I'd mentioned before, it took such a long time, and it was a very rough road for people with a psychosocial disability becoming properly recognised in the NDIS. And if there was the approach taken around that being carved down and given back to the states and territories, again, that would be extremely disruptive and place a lot more pressure on our clinical mental health services, which we all know are really under a huge amount of pressure as it is. So we're really wanting to advocate to ensure that this review is done in a very measured and considered way to ensure that the voice of psychosocial disability and people's lived experience is very much heard in this review, to ensure that they can continue to be a very valued subgroup of people with a disability for many, many years to come, just so we can continue the great work that the NDIS has provided to the community.
Why do you think the psychosocial component, for want of a better word, or condition was an afterthought and then kind of tacked onto support coordination, and now possibly is in jeopardy of being taken away? Why is that continually happening?
I think because for people living with significant mental illness, often there does need to be that reliance on the clinical mental health system, which is funded through the state. So if you are living within the community and you're trying to live as independently as you can with a psychosocial disability, the NDIS can be very great for you and very beneficial. But if you require that clinical support through a psychiatrist or a clinician through an area mental health service, there is that crossover. So there is often you need to receive that health service for your mental health, as well as that community support for your psychosocial disability. So I think that's sort of driving a lot of why it probably does need to be moved back. But we just want people to be able to stay in the community and live within the community, and I think that separation is important as well.
Yeah, and I think I reckon that's a really good point you make, is that the NDIS is black and white, and there's no grey areas in it, and this is one little grey area that they obviously still can't get their head around, and there's not a box for it that you can tick and go, yep, that's right, because that's what we find on a daily basis.
For the uninitiated, psychosocial recovery training. What's that mean?
So psychosocial recovery training, I guess that is helping people who are living day to day with the impacts of their mental illness that is, I guess, in some ways impacting how they may actually access the community, access different supports to be able to live their best life. So I guess from the perspective of what the NDIS is able to provide people is that assistance to be able to work through what the impacts of their mental illness is through being able to access services in a way that's very meaningful for them to be able to build capacity to be able to live as independently as they can within the community.
So do you have any lived experience, family members, close friends with mental health issues, physical disabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Many close friends, and I guess that have provided a lot of support to people over the years in that space within my broader social and network and family network as well. Before getting into the mental health space, I did work in the disability space as well, pre-NDIS. So for probably around over 20 years now, have worked in that social services space, ranging from disability, homelessness and mental health.
So what puts you in that space at a young age? Because I can sort of understand I'm a bit older, the doctor and I are a bit older, and I feel like I'm actually giving something back after being selfish for over 60 years.
Some would say you still are.
Yeah, some would say we still are. But I think I'm doing a pretty nice thing today, speaking to Mark and actually even letting you in the room. You know what I mean? What brings a young bloke into this sort of industry to basically give himself to other people?
I think when I finished year 12 or dragged myself through year 12, I ended up doing a diploma in computing, which I couldn't stand, and then dropped out of that. I did a certificate in community services disability, mainly because a mate was doing it. We were like, this will be cool. We'll just go and hang out and do this course. And then just really fell in love with, I guess, the importance of the work in being able to help people to fulfill their dreams and their aspirations, and then got into the mental health space. And I guess here I am today after working across Victoria, New South Wales and overseas as well. So, yeah, I'm really passionate about ensuring that people with a disability have access to, I guess, everything that people without a disability have access to, and to really create a lot more equal opportunity, because we know that there's still so much discrimination and a lacking of opportunity for people with a disability across the country.
So what's next for the Haven, Mark? Obviously, you've got all these new facilities opening. Are we just going to keep opening more, or what are the plans?
I think we have a significant pipeline of new Haven residents that are being built. We really want to continue to hear from our community and the people that we support, as well as young people, like looking at variations of the model as well of how we can support different subgroups is really important to us to ensure that we can continue to evolve the model and to help more marginalised groups as well. And because we have received that funding for a Haven in South Australia, we are registered nationally as a community housing agency. So looking at being able to bring what we see as a really innovative and unique model to other parts of the country as well.
How would you apply? What makes you eligible?
So that within Victoria, there's a Victorian regulation and a regulator, and that's the same within WA, but there's a national community housing regulator as well. So the Haven Foundation Australia is registered under the national regulator.
And so where does the Haven get their funding from? Is it from the state governments or from the federal government?
From the state governments, but we are encouraged by the current federal government's announcement of the Australia Future Housing Fund, where we do see, after such a long period of time of there not being really any movement from the Commonwealth in social housing, as well as the new housing accord, which was announced a few weeks ago, that after such a long time of nothing, that we hopefully will see some investment from the Commonwealth into social housing as well.
Well, yeah, I hope so too, mate, because we see it day to day that housing is such a big issue with, probably most participants, maybe 80%, are all struggling to find housing or in accommodation that just is not suitable for them. So we wish you all the very best of luck, and we want to see a lot more havens popping up all around Australia.
Yeah, and look, I'd love to give you guys a tour of it. I know you've seen Haven South Yarra, but it'd be great to get you out for one of our new ones as well. I'm heading out to a haven in Epping just this afternoon to take some people through, so welcome to bring you guys along at any point in the future.
Well, we would love that, and I think we might bring along a camera as well, because I think that's a great story for our TV series.
Yeah, we're putting together a TV series, so we're always looking for new stories. Amy, write that down. Write that down. Just one quick question before we go, and this is an Amy question. She comes up with some great questions and some shockers too, but some great ones. What are some of the challenges, though, people face when trying to secure housing? If the doctor just spoke about it then, it's one of the tough things, but what are the challenges for people to try and, first of all, get secure housing and then get into the haven?
I think getting on the Victorian Housing Register is really important. We often find that that's something that people have just not been supported to do. So ensuring that people who believe that they are eligible for the Victorian Housing Register, which is the equivalent of what the public housing wait list was, that is really important. And for the NDIS, it's around evidence, to ensure that people can receive that right level of funding within the haven. It's having that evidence to support that 24/7 support. I think the challenges as well is often location. We know that there's still such particularly within metropolitan Melbourne, we're really fortunate to have a site in South Yarra, but as to where people want to live, of having some flexibility around that. I think that's an important part, is to really keeping your options open as to where you would be able to live in and to move to as well.
Well, I do know from speaking to Alan Fells, what was probably, 18 months ago.
So longer.
Yeah, longer, maybe a couple of years, that I jokingly said, so you're going to take over the world? And there was a pause, and he said, why not?
So, and that's why he's got Mark.
That's Alan.
He's an amazing man. Mark Heeney, Executive Director of Housing Strategy at Mind Australia and the Haven Foundation. Thanks so much for your time, mate. It's been very enlightening, and we might take you up on that offer.
We will definitely take him up on the offer.
Thanks again, mate, and good luck with everything moving forward.
Thanks so much. Great to speak to you both today. Cheers.
Gee, as I said in the intro,